German philosopher Walter Benjamin once wrote that Marx says that revolutions are the locomotive of world history. But perhaps it is quite otherwise. Perhaps revolutions are an attempt by the passengers on this train, namely the human race, to pull the emergency brake. If we ever wanted an example of why we collectively need to pull the emergency brake, we look at the scale of biodiversity crisis that is facing humanity, that is facing the globe. 70% drops in wildlife populations over the last 50 years. Extinction now threatening a quarter of all of Earth's species, 40% of amphibians, a third of marine mammals, 10% of insect species. In Ireland, 63% of our wild bird species have a red or amber status, 85% of supposedly EU protected habitats have bad or inadequate status. Europe is a disaster for biodiversity, and Ireland is right at the bottom. The 13th worst country in the world, extremely nature depleted country. But that isn't, nothing is happening, nothing is changing. Let's be honest. We are still heading for absolute disaster. And this isn't some kind of middle-class, esoteric concern. If you're concerned about rare birds, you should be concerned about this. You know, if you like to see pandas, you should be concerned about this. If you eat food, you should be concerned about the biodiversity crisis. Because without nature, there's no food. We hear no farmers, no food. Absolutely correct. But no nature, no farmers. And we're heading towards ecological breakdown and a breakdown of our food systems. That is where we're heading. And I think there is a problem in that when you get citizens together, when you get young people together, they say very, very clearly, we're utterly, utterly failing and we need radical change. You look at recommendation 11 from the Citizens' Assembly 10, it says we should advocate for a shift in emphasis in EU and international economic policy away from GDP expansion as a goal in itself and towards the goals of societal and ecological well-being. But what is actually happening? I mean, the Minister earlier said he estimated that over 80% of the recommendations and 90% of the calls to action are already in progress or captured in the 4th National Biodiversity Action Plan. Simon Harris Taoiseach said something similar to me on Tuesday, claiming that 93% of the recommendations have been implemented or are in progress. He then admitted that the phrase "in progress" is one we need to watch in politics, because in this case it's a euphemism for doing nothing. Just let's be real. Like, it can only be by a tick box exercise, by pure lip service, by purely quantitative analysis. Say, don't worry, we're 90% on top of this problem, when the problem is actually getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. And you turn on your morning radio and you hear the Minister for Agriculture, probably the person with the greatest responsibility in terms of doing something about the biodiversity crisis, because the driving factor is land use change, i.e. industrialised agriculture. And what's he saying? He's peddling the IDA line that Ireland feeds the world, when actually we are a net importer of calories, and he's saying that he's reiterating the government's absolute commitment to continuing with the nitrates derogation. That derogation is one of the main causes for the unsatisfactory water quality in almost half of our rivers and streams, which in turn is a driving factor for biodiversity loss. He is abandoning even the advice of his own Food Vision dairy group, which the Minister established in 2022, recommending an exit and reduction scheme to compensate farmers for reducing their herds, and the government is now ruling that out. The government is acting, like one part of the government over here is saying we recognise the scale of the crisis, we have to act, etc., etc. But the other part of the government, the main part of the government, is acting as if business can just continue as usual, that nature can continue to be a sink for all the pollution that capitalism and industrial agriculture can throw at it. And that gets me to I think the most important recommendation. The recommendation that we have an expert group to explore having a referendum on rights of nature. Because this gets the essence of the problem that capitalism treats nature as a free gift and as a dumping ground for pollution. And capitalism has helped to create a massive rift between humanity as a whole and nature, and this disconnection from what Marx described as our inorganic or organic body. And a referendum, putting it in the Constitution, could help to overcome that, could say that nature has rights, and the rights of nature is intrinsically linked to the rights of humanity to have clean, livable, safe, proper environmental standards in all aspects of our lives. It would dramatically improve people's lives. So I'm a bit worried about the fact that it seems that the expert group has been downgraded. I'm interested in your response, where it effectively your report from the MPWS, the MPWS will explore the ways in which the rights of nature could be formally recognised, including the potential for constitutional change. Are we going to have an expert group? Can we see the terms of reference for the expert group? And can we make sure proper international and local experts are involved in that?